The case of Judge Judy v. Real Court. To anyone familiar with daytime television, Judge Judy is most certainly a household name. Possibly just as familiar is the series of statements run at the beginning of every Judge Judy episode. The people are real. The cases are real. The rulings are final. This is Judge Judy. As this demonstrates, Judge Judy is an example of a reality television show. Many people are drawn to the show by Judge Judith Scheindlin's fiery personality and for some of the outrageous cases that go on trial. However, analysis of Judge Judy reveals that the show may be doing more than simply entertaining the masses. Looking at how civil court legally operates and background, Judith Scheindlin gives insight into who the judge is and the legal foundation of her show. Observations from the show itself help to establish the general emotional atmosphere and the procedures followed for a typical case on the show. Analysis of the show against real courts displays the show's potential educational value, but criticisms of Judge Judy's personality and studies on her show's effects on the public reveal where the show falls short. All this leads to the conclusion that Judge Judy's portrayal of courtroom justice skews the public's knowledge of how real court works and actually affects the public's opinions on how court should work. This distortion has far-reaching effects. It can affect the public's view and respect for the legal system, and can affect the legal system itself in that the courts select jurors from the public. In the United States, civil court cases revolve around a legal dispute between two or more parties, civil. In these types of trials, the plaintiff is the one filing a complaint against the defendant. The goal of the plaintiff in these trials is to demonstrate harm that has been done to them due to the actions of the defendant and to win relief ordered by the court. Relief can take the form of a number of different things, including monetary payments or an order to cease harmful action, i.e. restraining order. Before a trial happens, the opposing sides are encouraged to settle their dispute without having to actually go to trial to save precious time and money. However, if an agreement cannot be reached, then the two sides will indeed have a date in court to receive a ruling. Most of the time, when people think of court cases, they think of the right to a trial by jury, which is where a selected group of United States citizens, called jurors, who are ideally unbiased, decide the outcome of the case based on the evidence presented. However, in civil court, there are certain scenarios where it is not the best option to exercise the right to a trial by jury, and there are even times when that right does not apply. In cases in small claims courts too, small amounts of money are involved and the parties represent themselves rather than relying on lawyers. According to NALO 3, these types of cases will be more complicated and harder to handle in front of a jury versus a judge. This is because the amount of formalities involved in a jury trial is not worth going through for the small amounts of money involved in small claims courts. Normally, in a jury trial, a judge's only responsibilities are to supervise to ensure that the rules of court are followed and to hand down sentencing. In the case of what is called a bench trial, however, the judge has the added responsibility of determining the outcome based on the evidence. Bench trials ensue when both parties have waived the right to a trial by jury, or when that right does not apply to the situation. In civil court, it is only necessary to prove that the defendant is more likely than not responsible for the harm done to the plaintiff. Enter Judith Scheindlin. Judith Scheindlin is a former lawyer and real court judge. As a prosecuting attorney, she started in juvenile delinquency cases for the state of New York in 1972. After over 10 years of service there, Mayor Edward Koch appointed her to be a judge in New York City's family court. By 1986, she had become the supervising judge in Manhattan. As a real judge, She heard over 20,000 cases over the years. She became well known for her reputation as a tough but fair and altogether effective judge. She was coined a swift decision-maker and was credited with pioneering an open court policy, allowing the public and the media to view her day-to-day proceedings, bios, after being impressed by an article on her by the Los. In February 1993, the television show 60 Minutes featured Judge Scheindlin on an episode. This outbreak of media attention led to the judge being approached about a new, possible television show. Judge Scheindlin retired from her occupation as a real court judge in February 1996, and on September 16, 1996, Judge Judy was born. On this new show named after her, Judge Judy was to be the presiding judge. In this role, she would hear cases in bench trials brought before her by opposing parties that would normally go to a small claims court. To be on the show, both parties had to agree contractually to have their case televised and to accept the ruling and sentencing handed down by Judge Judy. The program has been a hit since its inception. As of the 2013 season, the show was ranked #1 in daytime television, and the judge was among the 100 most trusted Americans, according to a survey by Reader's Digest. This year, the show is in the middle of its 19th season. Clearly, Judith Scheindlin has made an impact on the American general public. However, has her impact overstepped the boundaries of pure entertainment? Does this show offer Americans an educational outlook on the United States legal system, at least as far as bench trials? Or does it mislead Americans in some way due to how it is run or its televised nature? To begin, it may be helpful to make a few observations about Judge Judy. Judge Judy actually does a fairly good job of recreating a real court. An initial, comprehensive view of the setting at the beginning of all Judge Judy airings depicts many elements common to a courtroom. Tables and benches made of wood are evenly situated among the courtroom. Audience members are free to sit in rows in the back, just like the general public is free to do in many higher-level real court cases. There is a table and seating for both the plaintiff and the defendant. All of these components are situated such that they are angled toward the central focus of the judge's bench. While Judge Judy's setting may provide some details on how it compares to real court, more insight can be gained from looking at specific episodes. Looking at an episode from October 31, 2014, Jennifer Watts is one of the plaintiffs depicted, and she brings a charge against the defendant, Kenneth Soros, that she discovered him having sex in her home. Upon first glance, there doesn't seem to be too much out of ordinary regarding this show contrasted against a real courtroom. While presenting their cases, the plaintiff and defendant use rather informal language, but this is to be expected as neither are trained in law nor use a lawyer. Those appearing on the show do not use lawyers because Judge Judy is based on the small claims court model in that legal defense is not used. However, it is around 7.5 minutes into the episode that some red flags start to go up. At this time, Judge Judy begins conversing with her courtroom official, Petrie Hawkins Bird IV. While speaking to Mr. Bird, she summarizes the argument given to her by the defendant in that he was saying he was helping a distressed woman and not having sex with her. The testimony against him clearly points to the contrary, and his story does not line up in a mocking tone by repeating verbatim parts of what he said with an air of sarcasm and with the intent to incite laughter from the court. A strong sense of subjectivity